So we're here with Rob at Vegas.com, and the reason we wanted to talk to Rob is because he is one of those people who thinks way outside the box, way outside. And so we're here in his office, and he's granted us the opportunity to get inside the mind of Rob. So talk to us. So the traditional call center, right, is a cost center. It's where people complain. There's no money. It doesn't drive revenue. And you're kind of the un-call center.
Well, we're not the uncall center in respect to the phone rings and we answer it, but we are very different in that everything that we do is geared at making money and bringing.
Okay, that's a concept. So a contact center that makes money.
Makes money, and not just a little money. I like bags and bags and bags of cash, and using everything that we've known from our traditional call center backgrounds, like you described, and saying, how do we tweak this? How do we use all that information that we have to make money?
So tell me, what's your background in call centers?
Well, I run Vegas.com, which
but before this, did
funny.
you do something that was more traditional?
Emergency response, 911 service,
Okay.
for 20 years, and so. This is quite a stretch. This is way different. This is the other end of the spectrum. But for 20 years, I spent my time making sure that police, fire, and medical, were dispatched appropriately as needed. And every call that I got was a bad call.
Right.
And when I say bad, it was upsetting. It was frustrating. It was a bad situation. People were concerned, and there was an incredible sense of urgency on every single call. So when you talk about speed of answer and all those traditional metrics that we have, that takes on a whole new level when you're dealing with the 911 service. And I moved all around the country in San Francisco, and Portland, Naples, New York, and finally said, we need to do something a little bit different. I need to be able to sleep at night, and so we came out here to Vegas, but when you look at the sort of the skill sets and the things that you do in the call center world, there's really not that much difference.
You have people, you have desks, they have headsets, they have a computer, the phone rings, you get a screen pop and you answer it. And
there's a sense of the benefit of the background that I came from is that there's this incredible sense of urgency to answer the phone. The experience is different once they get the guest on the phone because suddenly they're like, "Woo, we're coming to Vegas!" I'm like, "Yay!" You need medical? And they're like, "No, we're fine." So we took all of that skill, all of that experience, and all of that sort of sense of urgency, like I said, and applied it to what we're doing here, and realized that everybody that we deal with here is not upset. You're dealing with an upset person every now and then, but they're coming on vacation.
Right, so they're pretty much happy campers. So they want a deal, and they want to know the top places to go, right?
Exactly. We end up being like their cousin in Vegas, and everybody's got that person. So we realized that we have an opportunity here to do something wildly different than you would find in a cable company or in a health services call center. And that if we didn't take advantage of it fully, and really, like you said, step out of the box, really take advantage of changing the way that people looked at a contact center, and if we didn't do it here, it wouldn't be done anywhere. So 8 years ago, when we launched this contact center, we decided that we were going to use this as a platform to prove up this concept that says, you can do things different. You can not ignore the past, but you can take the elements from the past. You can apply them to what we're doing now, and you can do it in a wildly different way, and make a grip of money, so that and then we could tell everybody about it. So that once you went back to your CFO or your CEO or whoever it may be, you can say we can do things a little bit different. And before they run you out of the office for being a completely insane person. You can say, but it works. Here's a company that did it. Here are their results.
Right, and that's kind of our interest in interviewing you, because there's a lot of contact center managers, directors, SVPs who really want to do customer service in the way that you're thinking about, really being of service, having fun, and they're really kind of handcuffed. And they're always told do more with less, right? And they're seen as a cost center. So the problem becomes, how do you make that transition? And part of it is, I would say, you're a brave soul. So knowing that you knew how the old way was, and then you saw this vision of how to do it differently, and then you had the guts to do it.
That's the biggest tool that any contact center sort of visionary or change, courage.
Courage,
and so, I would tell everybody that have the right system in place, know how your system works, because most people don't. I mean, they know it good enough, but they don't really know all it can do. And have the right people, and then have the courage to use it. And that courage to use it is probably the thing that frustrates most of us as contact center people, because you don't want to put yourself out there on the limb too much, but you want to make sure
most people are flying under the radar.
Yeah.
They've tried to think differently. They've stood up for what they believed in, and then got shot down. And so after that happens to you a bunch of times, you just think, okay, I really want to pay my mortgage. I don't want to lose my job, even though I know I'm right. I can't convince anybody that I'm right. So rock hard place.
Rock and a hard place. I came into this particular position with a little sort of card in my sleeve, as it were, because I had an agreement with the president of the company that said that they would not tell me no for anything I wanted to do, no matter how radical, for a year.
Nice.
And if at the end of the year it wasn't working, and the sort of trust that I was granted on credit wasn't proved up, then we would go our ways amiably, and we'd laugh about it and whatever. Over the course of that year, we made some pretty dramatic changes here.
So talk about those changes. What did you see
that
you wanted to start with?
We said that you needed to measure everything and announce nothing. And the reason that is important to us here was that we needed to find out all of these little measurements and all the little tweaks. The contact center people are the most heavily measured people on the planet.
Right.
And I can tell you without any degree of guessing, how long each one of my people spends in the bathroom each day. We know that. We do about 10,000 interactions a day here, and we back then we did about 5,000. And an interaction to us is a phone call, is a web chat, is a fax, is an email. It's all the same to us.
Gotcha.
We run it all through the same engine.
Yep.
And so we said to ourselves, we need to use every element that we knew from the past, every metric, and define how that helps each individual person. I'm not putting a broad brush across everybody and saying everybody needs to spend 460 seconds on a call, or your average after call work time can't be more than 30 seconds. Or what we found was that we had individual people who when they spent another 35 seconds on a call, their conversion rate went up by 4 points. Where other people talk fast. So we don't have any solid number across the board. We have each individual person on an individual basis.
How many contact center agents do you have?
There's 60 people right now dedicated to that call volume. If you do the math, it doesn't add up, because in a traditional sort of Erlang-based world,
right.
You just can't handle that many interactions with that number of people. But what's happened sort of in the social media generation and the multiple contact channel world, we have folks out there based on their skill level and based on their proficiency and based on their abilities and their willingness and all of those other cool little factors. They can be engaged in a back and forth conversation on a post on Facebook, and talking on the phone to somebody about something completely else, and had an email sitting doing some research in the past. So they're handling 3 and 4 interactions at the same time, not unlike we see every teenager in America do it now.
Right,
So,
exactly, exactly.
It's kind of an interesting
The
model.
kings and queens of multitasking.
Exactly. A funny story, off topic slightly, but this summer,
I know you'll bring it back around.
I'll bring it. This summer, I hired a bunch of high school seniors to come in and really blow out QA sort of interactions. Not evaluating the tone or anything, but just going through some bullet points. So we're going to get some more statistics on some stuff. So they came in and they were listening to calls and scoring these 5 categories, that I was looking for. And we had them sitting in the back, and our contact center managers walked over there at one point, and all of them were engaged working, but they were also on their Facebook accounts doing whatever teenagers do on their Facebook account and watching YouTube videos. And so Clint, the manager, said to them, he's like, "What are you doing? You can't do all of these things at once." And they looked at him honestly and completely and said, "Why?
Right.
Of course we can. What are you talking about? We can't."
And one of the things we see in our practice is if you have people that are running your contact center, let's say they're in the boomer generation and they're dealing with Gen X, Gen Y, it's a completely different generation.
Completely different generation. And Clint, to that end, he wanted to go back to use our system to find the numbers and prove to these kids that they couldn't do it efficiently. And he went back, and they were handling twice as many interactions and calls to QA than we had expected and budgeted them to. So he said, "Yeah, I guess they can." I'm like, "Yeah, what are you going to do?"
Yeah.
So,
proof is in the pudding.
The
and
proof
in
is
the
in the
details,
pudding.
right?
And so we did that.
Right, and I think that's going to be a reoccurring theme in our conversation is really, okay, so this is how we always do it, right? But what if we did it differently? And let's do the little experiment to see what that is. And guess what? You find gold.
You find gold. And we, along the lines of building up our contact center and doing things a little bit different, there's a couple of things to remind everybody of, and then I have to remind myself often. This is a different place. We're selling Vegas. We are a sales-based center. And so to that end, I have a little bit more freedom and flexibility than somebody that's just doing pure customer service.
But I would argue with you, when customers have a question, isn't that part of the sales process?
That is a huge stepping point in transition to most call centers that they can't get over.
Right, and most executives, right? So they don't understand that the customer lifetime value, so how many times has a value, right? And that the cost of acquisition is a certain number, and it's less expensive to keep the customers you have them buy more for a longer period of time. That's customer lifetime value. And yet, what we encourage call center managers to do is to not treat the customer as king or queen, and instead we go out and have to reacquire these people. So the whole process of customer service, let's say even if it's not like you definitely have a sales center, but let's say that the idea that I get service, right? What that says to me as a consumer is, oh, when I have a problem, I'll be taken care of, so I'm going to come back. It creates that loyalty.
Well, you spoke of the sort of customer service and transition and the lifetime value of a customer, and there are very few contact center managers that I talk to that actually have that metric and apply it to each minute of their phone calls or each element of their training class. And so when you apply the amount of money that is there, it's not always in direct sales. It can be in other things, but all of the metrics and all of your training and setup and modeling needs to be towards that goal. We were a customer service group here when I got here.
Gotcha.
That's what we did. People bought stuff online,
right,
and then they called us to make changes or whatever.
Right.
Within weeks of getting here, Clint and I, we recognized that when people got on the phone with us, they were asking better questions than they could derive on their own from the website, and our agents and the people that worked for us just had better, quicker, stronger answers because we were giving advice about Vegas, the entire city. And so they're like, okay, great, yeah, super, I'm going to do that, and then they go back to the website and they buy something and so on and so forth. And that was.
Can you track that, the phone call and then the transaction?
Well, no, that was kind of part of the problem. And you know, this is 2002, so
Right.
there's some differences there. But what we did say is, guys, let me put a phone number up on the website.
Now that's unusual because usually the whole MO is let's hide it, right? Let's make people dig.
Self-serve.
Which what happens to boomers is do not hide the 1-800 number, because when we find it, we will call and we will be mad at you.
Yep.
Even more madder than we would have ordinarily been. And so that's actually quite out of the box.
It's in fact, we don't want you to self-serve. It is more valuable.
Isn't that the concept? If we have a conversation, I hear what you're saying, I understand what you need, and now I can help you buy that.
We had a big project at Vegas.com, and I'm sure other companies did, to allow people to sort of change and cancel on their own, because that's what the consumers wanted, and so on and so forth. And you got to give the consumers what they want, and we found out that some consumers might want that.
Right.
But by allowing them to call into us, and in fact encouraging and requiring them to call into us, we make more money. Because now, when you're coming to Vegas, for example, and you have a change in plans, and you're coming from one weekend to another weekend, the website really doesn't have an opportunity to tell you, oh, by the way, this weekend, the Eagles are in town, or so on and so forth. But a contact center agent, within a matter of seconds, can say, hey, now you're coming this weekend. Let's look at a show. Let's look at a club. It wasn't available when you were here originally. I've looked at your total order, and I see that you don't have restaurant reservations, or can I book something for you that night?
Right.
So it's like the little elements of customer service that say, in a non pushy way,
salesy.
Let's do some more stuff.
Right.
And I get reminded constantly, that's because you've got Vegas to sell, and everyone wants to come to Vegas, but if it were cable, if as I interact with my cable company, if I was calling about this or that or the other thing, and I was calling to like cancel HBO or something like that, if I would go online and I just cancel HBO, that's the end of it. Right. But if I were to call and actually get through without waiting for 22 minutes, they might say, you know what, I understand why you're canceling HBO, because I have to ask the question. You don't find enough movies, or you don't do this, or the programming is different. Have you tried, Showtime? They've got a little bit different. And I'd probably say no.
Right.
And 9 out of 10 people might say no, but one person's no.
Right.
So, if you could increase your sales or reduce your cancellations by 10%, who wouldn't take that?
Right.
And so most people have a hard time doing it, or they force it and they make them read scripts and they do a bunch of things. So as I'm flying through like these years and years of strangeness that we've done here in the call center, I want to return back to that first year real quickly.
Yes.
And say that what we did in the first year, because the call center was set up before we got here.
So this is, you're new here, you have a year to prove yourself, and so, okay.
But the contact center, in a very traditional hierarchical setup, they had a sales queue, they had a customer service queue, they had a tier 2 queue, which were escalated calls,
Right.
They had an admin queue, they had all these little sections, which is why the contact center is set up the way it is now physically. It is still in these like rows of people. And so we said, we're doing away with all of that. And, customer service people, congratulations, you're in sales now. And they said, we can't be in sales. We're customer service people, we're not salespeople.
So not just management needs to shift, but the agents themselves have to see themselves differently.
And they needed the nudge. They needed to realize
have the permission
that they were actually in sales. That the hardest thing to sell, a salesperson selling a product, is a product. It's easy. It's something tangible that you can do. But a customer service agent who's selling policies and refund policies and procedures and cancellation fee and selling no, you can't do that. You can't make that change. That's a much more difficult thing to sell than a product. Right. And so we just need to remind everybody that they were actually in sales. Yes. They were dealing in this ethereal world of requirements. and that's what you were selling to the customer, and you were trying to do it in a way that didn't make them crazy.
Right.
But once they kind of got over that and realized that, yeah, maybe I am in sales a little bit, then it became very, very easy. But we also had the benefit of adding a new system to our world, and said that we needed to provide our customers as many channels as they would use. And,
Can I ask you what system you're using?
we use Interactive Intelligence. It's
nice.
it's probably the only system I've ever worked on in my career that allowed me to do what I wanted to do, not what I had to do.
Nice.
And I keep trying to break it. I just can't. So, but we put that system in place because they were they were out of the box in what they did, and they allowed me to do what I wanted to do. We changed up our sort of philosophy internally, management-wise and staffing.
Did you have to get rid of some of your agents? Did you have to hire new agents with a new mindset?
We didn't really hire any new agents, but we did get rid of a lot of people. That first year that we were engaged in this wild change, I think I say we hit the trifecta of success. We doubled the amount of interactions that we dealt with. We tripled our revenue that we brought in, and we cut our staff in half.
Okay, so all you people out there listening to this man is living proof that it can be done. You can increase revenue and decrease costs and provide better customer experiences,
yes,
which result in long-term customer loyalty.
That was kind of the focus of putting out there what we do, and inviting people to come in and sort of see what we do. Because if you were a contact center executive and you were to go back to your COO or CFO or something and say, hey, I can cut my staff in half, I can double the amount of work we do, and I can triple revenue, they would
loony bin.
They would send you to loony bin, absolutely.
Right.
But then you had that card in your pocket to say, oh, by the way, Vegas.com did it.
It's possible.
And it's possible, it's proven, it's
in the
there.
World, and it's really happening. Yeah. And that's really key for people to see that somebody else can do it and to model themselves, at least maybe in strategy, if not absolute execution.
Well, the execution is going to be difficult to mimic. I mean, there's some strangeness here. I mean, I wear a gray T-shirt every day. Mm-hmm. It's a different gray T-shirt every day, but it's a gray T-shirt every day. That's good to know. It's a Notre Dame today's crew. Obscure sports, that's what I'm all about. But we really, because that first year, we really allowed ourselves to go off the rocker in all things. All of our agents make their own schedules. We use our interactive intelligence system to build a forecast based on ACD simulations, not Erlang, because smart guy, but the multi-channel world now, Erlang didn't have any idea that Facebook and Twitter existed. Right. And if he did, then he was really smart, but I don't think he did. But so we take these simulations, we say, here's the call volume, here's what we expect coming up in the course of the next couple of weeks, go. And so our agents create their own schedules. And at first we were really concerned that we weren't going to get the coverage we needed, but what we found out was that they were much more aggressive in the scheduling of agents than we would ever be as managers. They thought this is the perfect thing. I can work for 3 hours in the morning and then come back in the afternoon or in the evening or whatever the case is. They would move their schedules around. They would work at weird days, single days off, 2 days on, because they could do all kinds of different things.
Do you have some virtual agents and some agents in the center?
30% of our staff works from home all the time.
Nice.
The rest of them can work from wherever they want to any of the time. That's another thing that we did when we just issued everybody laptops. Another benefit of the system. Again, right? System, people, and courage. That's the trifecta of success. But our system has the exact same interaction, whether it's on a laptop at home or a computer, as it is here. So you're not running into a different training curve. All of our headsets are USB headsets, so they just plug into a laptop, which we issue them because it's better than a physical space, and they work where they want to. And when they have those weird schedules that they create, a lot of them will work, like roll out of bed at 6 a.m. They'll work for 2 or 3 hours. They'll log off for a break or lunch. They'll shower, or they'll do whatever. They'll drive into work so that they can get that social interaction that occurs, and then
Sense of community.
and then go home. And that's kind of their world, and or vice versa. They'll come into work in the morning and then go in the afternoon and then go home. So that's an unusual thing that we do.
Yeah.
Where they work is irrelevant. They a lot of them come in because they want that community and that social engagement, but a lot of them stay away completely, and the rest of them just kind of mix it up. We use all kinds of weird tools in our system to monitor calls and nudge people and to whisper in their ears to get. There's a chat feature going back and forth so they can get support and help. And so whether they're across the aisle in the contact center or across the city makes no difference to me.
And that's really unusual too, because most people think out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And most managers are, well, if I can't see them, I don't know what they're doing. I can't trust it.
Well, if you were to sit in most call centers, you would probably find your supervisor sitting on one side of the room. You have limited, if no, visibility to the person that's on the other 15,000 square feet. So
what difference does it really make?
What difference does it really make?
It's kind of, it's extreme trust on your part. But the reality is you can't watch everybody all the time anyways.
We can't. We record 100% of our interactions, but we use them for to review how things can be better. And when we say quality and training purposes, it's really to figure out what the really strong people are doing, so that we can kind of take that, bottle it up, and then sprinkle it on some other folks.
Right.
But we found that even within that sense, there's no such thing as a group best practice. We throw all of these numbers and facts and figures into the system, and we try and find out that says, Mary is a really good salesperson and she does this and that, and then Sally has got similar hours and attributes and functions, and so let's take Mary and buddy her up with Sally a little bit to see if they can do a little mind melt to improve Sally's performance a little bit. But it will never work, with Tim. I got an agent, Tim. I don't know how he sells anything to anybody. In every call center I've ever worked in the traditional world, he'd fail every QA. He'd never make it. Customer feedback results on him, they love him. Everybody loves him. He sells everything to everybody. I don't know how he does it. It doesn't follow any standard on the planet, but it happens. And I can't ignore the fact that it happens. So it happens. But I can't push any traditional, formal group measurement on him, He's a kook, and he sells everything, so I let it happen. And like I said, the customers love him. That was another thing.
So you're allowing individuals to be individuals, which is really, that doesn't happen in companies. Everybody there's a corporate poet named David White, and he says that we leave 60% of ourselves in the car, on the bus, on the train. And we come into work and we're not fully expressed because it's not encouraged.
Well, it's encouraged here, and I think it can be encouraged everywhere. When people come to work here, which doesn't happen very often, they're given our 3 rules at the call center. There's no manual anymore. There's some HRE requirement, but as far as our 3 rules are, they are be here when you say you're going to be here, because after all, it is a contact center. Calls do come in, so don't lie to the customers. And when I say don't lie to the customers, if you don't know something, just say you don't know something. We're supposed to be a trustworthy source. Don't make it up because they're going to go and see the show. They're going to go stay at the hotel. They're going to eat at the restaurant. They're going to figure out that you're full of it. And then the third rule, and the most important rule that we have to tell everybody, is be true and authentic to yourself. To yourself, just be true and authentic to yourself. And to your point, bring all of that.
Right.
To the workplace.
Bring your kookiness, your weirdness.
Bring it all. I like I said, I spent 20 years, wearing, a uniform or shirt and tie or whatever. Realizing I'm on the phone. You know, let's focus on the important stuff.
Mhm.
And we've got a guy that wears shorts every day. Makes sense, you know, in 115-degree
Sure.
Vegas summer.
Absolutely.
A little less sense in a 38-degree winter, but
But
that's his thing, and
Yeah.
and he does it. You know, DJ out there, you know, wears flip flops every day. Drives me nuts. I hate the sound it makes. It's a thing with me.
Mhm.
But they're his,
Right.
and you can't hear him on the phone. So it's those, be true and authentic to yourself. Allow these people to be who they are, and they will reward you. And like,
What's your attrition rate?
we are probably 0.2%
That's what I thought. Yeah.
over the course of the last 7 years. We went through a 4-year stretch of 0, and nobody came, nobody left. After we sort of right-sized everything,
Sure.
we just had this groove, and you know, people did again what they needed to do, what they wanted to do, what they were impassioned to do, and there was no reason for them to leave. We developed a compensation structure that made
I was
sense
going
for
to
them.
ask you about that. So, in terms of pay, do they get a commission for what they sell?
They do. They get a commission. The base rate for virtually everybody is $11 an hour, and that is pretty low. Maybe it's not low in the contact center world, but it's low with the people that we generally want. And then we found through experience and or research, or just made it up, I'm not sure, that
A little bit of both.
a little bit of both. That $17 an hour is the break point between people looking for something else or just finding something else. So
Right.
anything less than $17 an hour, they were always kind of looking. And so we sort of made sure that we had a commission structure in place that said, if you're successful and you do what it is that you can do, you will make at least, you know, this amount of money. And then they don't look. You know, if
Right.
something comes and it happens, it
Right.
happens.
It happens.
But they're not, you know, opening up the classifieds or going on a monster all the time and looking. And then you let them do what they want to do. And it's an amazing sort of group. They are tremendously loyal. We also made a decision that we would never hire anybody off the street. That the contact center is not an entry-level position in a brand. They are the
That's a
voice of our
concept.
brand.
That's a completely different concept. Usually,
Upside down.
the contact center agent is the lowest entity. Even though they are the face of the brand, they
Right.
are in communication with the customer, which the customer is the most important asset in a company. No customers, no business,
Yeah.
no revenue. Can't really.
So
exist
say that
without
out
it.
loud like 3 times,
Right.
and then you realize how ridiculous that sounds.
You know.
It is absolutely ludicrous to me that the more loyal, more experienced, more educated you become about a brand, the further away from the customer you move.
Yeah.
So in our world, we say that the entry level is all the behind the scenes stuff, the admin functions, the mailroom, of this. After you've proven yourself to the company, after you have established a keen awareness and understanding of our brand and who we are,
And your culture
and
your
our culture,
behaviors.
then we'll let you be the voice of our brand.
Nice.
And in a unique sort of twist, these guys are the ears of our brand too. They've got more. It's subjective data, but it's still conversational data from our customers. They meet with our marketing teams on an ongoing
They
basis.
do?
Yeah,
Marketing and customer service talk to each other.
they have to.
Holy freaking
it's-
moly! That's unbelievable. You really are something. I'm telling you.
Well, I don't know about that.
No,
but,
I do. I've been in this business a long time, and I'm telling you, you are the
Well,
cool cat.
that's because I wear a great T-shirt every day.
Well, that too.
But but again, it's one of those things where if you say it out loud 3 times, you suddenly realize that why isn't everybody doing that? They'll invest $1 million a year in core metrics and try and find out what people are clicking on the website and going to town.
Or like Comcast that completely did a rebrand
Yeah.
to Xfinity.
Yeah, they'll invest that.
$500 million.
But simply asking the people that talk to your customers every day what they thought, what they heard, and what the buzz was.
And then making changes to the business.
Yeah.
Hmm.
companies today are investing thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in sort of brand identity awareness online, their Twitter feeds, and they're mashing it, and they're pulling out. They're engaging companies to follow all of their little tidbits and what people are saying about them online. And yet they're not asking the people to talk to their customers.
Well, they're broadcasting. Their social media in that context is no different than advertising or marketing has ever been.
Social media has been around since people sat around in a cave,
That's right.
about a fire, talking about, hey, the best hunting ground is over there.
That's right.
And so there's nothing new to us here in social media. We sort of have our own social media in-house, and make sure that the voice of our brand is locked up with marketing. The ears of our brand is locked up with marketing. The resource that is our call center, we believe is one of the more valuable resources, human resources of the company, and we treat them like such. And not that there's anything wrong with an entry-level employee or an off-the-street employee, but I just really don't, I don't want somebody to be working for, I'm not picking on Comcast, but I don't want somebody to work for Comcast for 10 years and then come into my center, and then within a week, suddenly now they've got to be Vegas.
Right.
And they've got to be Vegas.com.
It's a culture change. It's a whole different way to look at coming to work. And if you really want people to adopt the culture, then they're going to have to kind of watch it and observe it and then choose to become part of that.
And choose to become part of it. We that's the most important bit as far as it relates to the people. They choose to be part of it. And don't get me wrong. I mean, these guys aren't getting a piece of the company. They're it's not like they are employees.
Right.
They are people who get paid to do a job, but they are folks that buy into what we're trying to accomplish. Above every door in our building, it says, "Think of yourself as a customer."
I noticed that when we walked in.
And the important part of that is that it's not, the customer is always right or this or that or anything. It's really like it's how would you want to be treated?
Right.
Would you want to be treated with integrity, with honesty, with
humor, with kindness,
exactly,
with humility,
and authenticity?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then you probably belong here.
Right.
If the answer is no, I just want to do my job and I want to get paid and I want to move on or whatever, then you probably belong,
somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Not with Rob.
Not with Rob.
Not Rob's Rob. Family.
In my field of lilies. That's early on. That's what they called the contact center back here. They would always say, "Oh, Rob and his field of lilies," and because everything was, what we should do, and acting a little bit crazy like that.
Well, I had the similar experience when I was at General Motors and Hughes Electronics. Everybody would come to my meetings, people would participate in the things I was doing, and I could watch management walk past my door, right? And they would go, "What are you doing in there?" And I would start to say, well, I bake chocolate chip cookies, and I ask people their opinions, and they're like, okay, we don't really want to know. Just keep doing your apple pie and motherhood and whatever it is that you're doing. Whatever you do, right? But I was like, why don't you duplicate this? Interesting.
They didn't see the vision.
No.
So
they didn't.
It is a strange world, but it's a world that in the contact center space, at least, you said it's stepping outside the box, but we stepped outside the box to have an opportunity to get inside the box and see what we could do with what we had. Mm-hmm. And we had great people. We had a great system, and we had the courage to do it. So we got inside of those three elements, and we're pretty darn successful. Successful in positioning ourselves to do things, in a very profitable way, but then also having people that were locked in with our philosophy and our concept, so that when we added a new channel, when we added our Facebook management, these guys just did it. They didn't even think twice about it. There wasn't any big effort. It was just, that was normal. They could be true and authentic, and they could respond. When we started heavily engaging on anything that said Vegas about in Twitter, these guys just absorbed it. It became part of what they were. It became an interaction to them because they were true and authentic to themselves and had a clear understanding of the brand. So, it can be done, and it can be done well and profitable. I like to think that we're sort of living proof.
You are, Rob. Thank you. And I want you to think like a customer.